is where we discuss the possibilities.
Hey guys, I'm Joe Klemczewski, founder of the Diet Doc, here with Dr. Kori Propst, who is our wellness director and a health psychologist. And we've been discussing for now 8 episodes something that she loves to talk about, which is goal pursuit. Something that is foundational to us moving forward as human beings in all areas of our life. So today we're putting a period or an exclamation point at the end of this sentence. Yeah. Because after 7 episodes where we've discussed very particular aspects and facets of how to attain goals, we want to wrap it up and give you guys a tangible tool so you can use in pursuing every important goal. So Kori spent a lot of time in the last few days working on an assessment form. It contains all kinds of great content from all of the topics we've discussed. And Kori, what do you think about that? How did you lay that out, and what was important in you fashioning that one piece to take away?
Well, like you said, Joe, we covered so much within these last 7 episodes that I needed to find a way to synthesize it all and make it very usable for everyone who's been listening. So it really started off with having everyone, and this is a worksheet, guys. So this is something that you can go through step by step. And if you don't have a goal, then it will help you define maybe what goal you'd like to begin pursuing. And if you're in the middle of a goal, it can also help you to really generate, I think, some reflection in the areas that maybe you didn't go into, and maybe take some time to dig into before you actually picked your goals. So I think, Joe, the main thing is that we really talked about the value of values and understanding what those are for ourselves personally. And it's going to help people dig into what those are. It's going to get people to take some time to discover what their character strengths are, because we know that those are going to be incredibly influential in terms of feelings of fulfillment and energy and vitality and a sense of high quality motivation as we're pursuing our goals. And it digs down into really how we create a goal that's going to be intrinsically motivating. So those goals that come more from the inside, as opposed to moving toward an outcome that's more superficial or image driven or money driven or status driven or something like that. Now, that's not to say that we can't set goals around those things. And oftentimes we do, because they are important to us. I mean, we're in an industry where people want to look better. However, what we've really gotten into throughout the course of this series is that that's okay, and not but, and we have to really begin to weave into the areas of our lives that are principle driven, and we might have some ethics tied to them and some level of morality tied to them, and asking ourselves the question, how and who do I want to be, not just what do I want to accomplish. So it takes people through a process for discovering all of those things in terms of getting to that goal as best as possible.
And I think that's why it was tough for us to even move beyond that point. You know, we spent the first episode talking about or answering the question, why have any goals? Then we spent another episode or 2 talking about how they should be tied to some core value. So even if it is something that you could say is superficial, a goal to make more money, that's still tied to a value of, I want to provide security for my family, or I want my children to have more opportunity than I had. So even those goals that are superficial are fine, but anchor them down deep into that root motive that you have. And that's where you're going to find the excitement, the passion, and truly the energy to persist. So I do love that we spent the first 2 or 3 kind of beating that to because it's critical. And I will say, Kori, this was interesting because, you know, when I said, hey, we should probably create this like, you know, life mastery goal sheet, one of my first criteria was let's make it simple. It's going to be 1 page. And of course, in Kori fashion, you get 5 or 6 pages. But it ends up being a tutorial through the entire process of what we've described. So we might end up editing that, or there's probably one piece in there that says, here's the actual to-do list, task list. But this is a great piece of content because it explains the entire process of goal pursuit. So you literally put everything in there that needs to be, and we're making that available to you guys. So when we're finished, we'll talk about, you can just go to our site and download that. But I appreciate that you did that, Kori, and it's a really a great tool.
Well, anyone who's listened to us for a while or who has worked with me personally knows that I need to back up a little bit. I can't just give someone a bullet point worksheet because I want them to have a background. I want them to have a foundation. I want them to understand why it's important, because we're teachers, and teachers understand that in order for something to be applied in someone's life, it has to have some level of meaning. And without the question why answered and there being understanding, then it's going to fall flat. And I think that's a really great sort of way to dig into why goals. We need to understand what's underneath them in order for us to be persistent and for them to literally stick to where we feel like they're a part of us instead of just an extension out here of us that we could easily just kind of drop on a whim when it gets hard. So
and you know, I received an email from one of our program owners describing one of her clients' experiences with our programming and coaching. And it really made me go back after all the value and the personality strength discussion we had. We moved into different metaphors and acronyms for things. I'll let you describe those, the 8 points and 11 points and PERM and all that. But this client was finishing up some programming and wrote to her coach how life-changing this has been, because she's had the support of her coach. A lot of our staff has invested time into this client. We have this great 50-day team challenge that we created over the summer. 50 days to your hottest summer team challenge. We brought in almost 70 new clients with a dozen of our coaches. And it's been a phenomenal thing to share these goals with each other. As you said, you're not just isolated out there. If you make it or not, who cares? You'll just pick another goal. We created an environment for everybody to feel like they can share this with like-minded people, get that support, encouragement from people they don't even know. Relationships were created. And I think that's an important part of any goal. If it's worth pursuing, that means you're looking for something transformative in your life, and to surround yourself with people to help you on that journey is as profound as it gets.
Yeah. And in that vein, Joe, let's just go back to one of the main points that we talked about, which was the importance of having a challenge network and a support network. And the difference here, guys, with a challenge network, those individuals are going to tell you what you need to hear. And in a support network, those are the individuals who are going to tell you what you want to hear. Go team, rah, rah. They're kind of your cheerleaders, like, you got this, like, don't give up. You're doing exactly what you need to do. And your challenge network is going to say, can I be direct here? This might, maybe you could look at it from this direction, or have you considered this perspective? So they're going to try to get you to look and act outside of the box a little bit. And what was great coming back to this 50 days challenge is I saw both happening for people. And I saw some people being a challenger and a supporter. when someone would post and express what was happening or a difficulty that they were experiencing. And it was really neat to see how the majority of individuals, they absorbed both types of feedback. And one thing that we didn't necessarily talk about through all of these episodes, Joe, was the value of feedback. And before we started this show, you had asked me, like, is there one thing, Kori, that as you think about this, that super resonates with you in terms of goal pursuit? And my one word is practice. I use everything that I do on a daily basis, and the experiences that I have and whatever the world kind of presents to me, the circumstances that come into my life, as a practice to becoming who and how I want to be as a human being. And so in this group, that's what I saw happening all the time. These individuals are in this environment where they're almost forced to have to practice thinking differently and perceiving differently and acting differently. And it can be super uncomfortable. It can be unpleasant sometimes, but as I was kind of reflecting upon just this morning what we were going to talk about today, that's another thing that came up for me is I don't think I ever expect it to go perfectly. That I expect that it's going to not be pleasant sometimes, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and I'm going to be pushed into foreign territory. And okay, bring it on, right? That's that awesome growth area where if I didn't have that, I wouldn't feel that sense of passion and urgency and positive pressure that I think most of us are going for when we're setting a goal. No, we don't want it to be arduous and super difficult the entire time, but we do want a little bit of that. Otherwise, we're not going to push in any way or strive or feel any level of determination.
Yeah, I absolutely have to admit, early in my life, I was very resistant to change in opinion because as a forward-moving, action-oriented person, I didn't want to slow down to think about other people's opinions or things. I just wanted to go accomplish what I was already on the track to accomplish. And I got a great lesson today in civility. And one of our program owners on the phone, we were having one of those points where we're trying to agree on certain things and yet we're challenging each other. And I have learned with so many voices in our company and so many voices in my life to sit back and listen and process instead of just trying to defend territory I might already think is most important. And this particular person owns this character trait. Every time there was something that was challenging or an affront, even if I'm being very correct, she would agree and say something affirmative that, yeah, I totally can see why you think that, and I agree. And instead of just challenge, it's let's have this nice civil conversation. Let's show each other our cards, and we're going to come to an agreement. So there's this unstated sense that it's all going to be okay. I want to hear you. I value you. I hope you value me. And even though our goals might look different because of the perspective we're taking, our values and what we want to accomplish are truly the same. But it does take listening to other people who can show you things you might not truly, understand.
Yeah, there's a few things to that I will comment on that. Without relationships and without other people who have differing opinions or values, it's rare that we're going to butt up against or be confronted by our blind spots. And so, yes, it is incredibly valuable. The other piece of it is, the way that I like to describe it is, and this has resonated with a lot of my clients, is can you listen to learn and understand as opposed to listen to agree or disagree? because typically we're listening to express to the other person how they're wrong or right, but it becomes a tit for tat, right or wrong sort of conversation, as opposed to you really valuing what that person is contributing to the conversation. Like, that's really interesting. That's very different from the way that I've perceived things before. So yeah, that connection piece is really, really huge. And I think a lot of people forget that that's going to be a primary factor in a quality goal pursuit. Research has even shown that, and I've been involved in goals where I felt very isolated and haven't done a great job of connecting with other people and getting feedback from a bigger group of people. It may only be one or two individuals that, are providing some sort of support for me. And what research has shown is the more that we are isolated, the pain centers of our brains are activated and they light up. We experience physical pain from social isolation.
Absolutely.
And so while it shouldn't seem so crazy that so many of our 50 days challengers were like, the biggest difference in this entire experience was having these other people here for me and being able to communicate and ask questions of and get support from. Most of us are living very isolated lives. We're not connecting with other people. We don't feel a sense of belonging. We feel very alone. So take the time, guys, to really assess, do I have a support network? Am I actively trying to create robust relationships in my life? And how do I trust these people? Do I feel safe around them? Are they people who I can share things with and get other opinions from and generate new perspectives from?
Everything you're saying is really synthesizing a perfect summary from me. And then I'll let you close out the episode and the entire series. But, anytime I've decided I need a big change or a big goal in my life, I have definitely assumed it's going to take work. I'm going to plan months or years to accomplish a goal. I'm going to make room for it in my life. I'm going to start surrounding myself with people or resources. I've mentioned before, I've worked with several therapists, life coaches, people, simply because I want their input. It's not that I go to them and say, I'm broken, something's wrong, fix me. I go seeking perspective that I don't have. You are an expert in this field. You're an expert. At one point, I was working with 2 or 3 at the same time just because I wanted all of their different backgrounds and feedback. And I've journaled these types of things. I've created this life schema book that becomes part of my journey. And as I've just created that goal and I've immersed myself in it, that becomes a filter. Now I'm looking for new information, things that are going to help me. So it's not a small thing. I mean, that's why we've spent 8 episodes talking about goal pursuit. It's not just, well, here's my goal. If I miss it, too bad. I'll do another one. I always fail at my goals anyway. So I'll throw a bunch out there. That's not meaningful life change or life transformation. So that's my process.
Can I add that? So what you've beautifully articulated is that not all goals either are going to have a deadline. They're not going to have an endpoint, because you have a goal of constant, continuous self-development. I do too. That doesn't end. It's not going to end until I die. So that's why I say, like, everything that I'm involved in and the experiences I have in my life are practice in how I can develop myself, how I can think differently, how I can become a different sort of person, how I can pursue my values in this moment. How am I going to approach this situation? What's my attitude going to be? Ooh, that was a trigger. Stomach's in knots right now. How do I want to be in this situation? What energy am I going to embody? So self-development, that's not an endpoint goal. It's how can I use every situation as an opportunity to practice? I wrote a whole blog series a while back on weight loss as a practice for living. So we can pick any goal, guys. Those of you who are listening, pick any one of your goals and ask yourself, how can I use this goal as a practice for living my best life? If there's one thing I want you to remember from the series, it would be that.
Awesome. Awesome. And I know in the show notes from this episode, Kori, we'll have probably a link to the Life Mastery Goal Pursuit Worksheet.
Correct.
So again, I appreciate you tacking that onto the whole content thing that we've created here. So any final words for everybody before we lock this down and go on to another category?
I don't know, Joe. With all of this discussion, I'm on the edge of creating this goal mastery mastermind group. So I'm throwing that around in my mind and kind of organizing myself around what that might look like. But I want some, thinking I want some go-getters, some really determined, interested, self-development pursuers involved. So yeah, in the upcoming podcast, I may be announcing something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am so convinced that kind of group environment where you've got the support and the challenge is important. I mean, we've proven that in our company. You're a master at doing that with all of the different types of groups and curriculum you create. So yeah, that's something we should definitely chew on.
Awesome.
All right, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us through 8 episodes. We are beyond the 50 episode mark for starting this entire podcast this year. And we want to find ways to create some premium things. We try and keep these, 20 to 25 minutes so they're not overwhelming. But at the same time, some topics just do require a deeper dive. So every once in a while, we're going to do this. We might even have an hour or 90 minutes session on certain things that we'll talk about in advance. But thank you guys so much, and keep giving us feedback so we can bring you more life mastery goodness.
Thank you.